Hi guys, Tech here, and I wanted to go ahead and do the last of the 3 Trickster builds, which is our Soulrend Trickster. I did basically, while going through it, go ahead and also make links and everything for ED Contagion as well as ED Soulrend, because I found that ED paired pretty well, a lot better than Bane was pairing. I feel like Bane is better if you're going occultist, where Soulrend and ED work a little bit better if you go trickster. Now this is a build type that was popular forever. Luckily, with the addition of Spellbreaker giving us that defensive layer, this is really going to feel fantastic. And it's going to get it back to kind of where now the difference is more your playstyle preference instead of Trickster just not being a good option as far as for the chaos dot skills. Now I'm showing you a little bit of gameplay with Soulrend. Now I do have the Celestial Cat MTX, which is basically the only thing that is pay to win about this build, because the cats are infinitely cooler than anything else that than the skill looks normally, and you kind of, to really feel the build, you need the cats, because who doesn't like death by cats? It's just kind of glorious. Now, since this one is going to be kind of complex, because I basically made a low, medium, high investment as well as 3 different skills. So you're essentially getting like 9 full builds here that most people would put out. So it's going to be a little bit in depth. And so for that, I'm going to go ahead and get off of this and go into the path of building, so I can go over kind of how to use it, because it's a little different. Now on the path of building, you can see there is the first, second, and third lab. There is a hybrid life, there is a low life, and there's a CI. As far as investment is concerned, and like while you're leveling up through the axe and all, hybrid is kind of your baseline no gear requirement. This doesn't have any required gear. However, if you really want to have the great survivability and fantastic DPS, you're going to want to get some certain things, and they are going to be expensive. I'm just going to get that out of the way and just let you know, like, you don't have to get everything I'm talking about, but if you want to really min-max it. So this is going to kind of take you from no gear requirement, just blues, all the way up until pretty high min-max. So you can kind of gauge where you're at and go from there on that end. So you have the different trees that will walk you through. There's also the hybrid. There is the low life. And then there is the CI build. There is a little bit of inefficiency in from here to here to here. There's a reason behind that, which is basically I wanted you, like, I would rather waste a point or two to make it where it's easy to transition from one of these builds to another one of these builds. So like for the hybrid one, you could pull out this point completely and it won't affect it. But if you were going to transition from hybrid to this guy or this, you'll notice you need that point. And so there's some stuff like that that is like a little bit weird, but it's just to make everything as smooth of a transition as possible. You'll also notice that I path in such of a way where you're still getting good life and all, but you aren't committed to going down this part of the tree, which is not going to be as useful if you're planning on going CI or low life. So I kind of get you to where you can make a decision, hopefully by the time that you're like approaching early mapping or like Act 10, which is fine, right? If you're in that area, then you should kind of be able to look at your gear and say, yes, I have a bunch of ES gear, or no, I don't. If the answer is no, I don't, stay hybrid. If the answer is I have a bunch of ES gear, or maybe it's like your second or third character, then you can go straight into either the CI or low life build. But I did want to be kind of clear on that part. The other thing is, because this one is essentially 3 different builds, the skills are going to be very, very different than normal. So I have early leveling, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, Act 4. Now, wherever you're at, you're just going to need to enable, click just enable on the auras, because everything's turned off. Okay, the reason why everything's turned off is so it doesn't mess up whenever you're trying to check it, because there's different aura sets for all of these. So each individual tree type has its own aura set, because you're just going to do different things in different circumstances. So like, let's say you're going hybrid. So you'll notice both of these are disabled. Well, do you have a curse ring, a temp chains curse ring? If not, use this one. If you do, use this one. These are all color coded. So if you want to play ED Contagion, basically all you do is enable both of the two, and it will give you the correct DPS for whatever pairing you choose to use. I do talk about the different pairings, their advantages and disadvantages in the notes section, which we'll go over later. I do want to kind of get into a couple of these things because they are a little more technical. So on these, if you notice, these two are linked, these two are not linked. The reason why I have it separated is because you don't want arrogance on everything, because it will reserve more life than you have. Then again, same thing. Just see, do I have a despair ring? Do I have a temp chains ring? And click whichever one you have. Then on the CI, you'll notice all the auras are enabled. And so if you go CI, you just click this and boom, everything's going. If you have a Curse with Despair ring, click on that one, so on and so forth. Then just pick your 2 skills. Trying to make it very, very easy. Now, while leveling, basically, you're going to level with Blight until you get to Essence Drain, Blight and Contagion. You can use Contagion kind of as a clear speed, Blight is your single target. Once you get to level 12, you're going to start using Essence Drain. These are in order of importance on these layouts, so try to get the first one. Don't worry about the second one until you have the jewel sockets. Like, don't go crazy trying to figure out. It doesn't really matter at level 4 if you have 4 links, or at level 12. But just as you can fill in. Then you'll notice that when you go to Act 2, some of these are changed. The reason that they are changed is because there is a better gem to use than what was previously listed. And then the same thing for 3, it'll have your auras. So if you're leveling, click on that guy and it'll tell you where you're at with auras, etc., etc. Then you'll have your Soulrend, ED, or Contagion. I would recommend playing ED Contagion for a while until you either decide A, you hate Contagion and you just don't like it mechanically. If that's the case, because here's the thing about Soulrend. Soulrend is okay before you get GMP. Once you get GMP, or greater multiple projectiles, it becomes amazing. So you kind of want to run with Contagion and ED until you get GMP, and then you can kind of decide which way you want to play it. In any of them are valid, and as you can see, I kind of have everything on a 4-link. Then once you pick your build type, you'll just come here. The other thing is, let's say we decide to go hybrid. If you notice, there's a leveling, there's a mid-tier hybrid, there's a mid-high CI, then there is a very high budget low life build. And you'll see, like, you kind of have, the reason why you have to do everything this way. So if you notice, when we like turn everything on, it works all the way up. And then you also have to change here to this. And then now you're at 90 LRes, which is pretty cool. But that's why you have to disable stuff, is because there's a very large amount of differences between the builds. And this was the only way I could do it where it kind of made sense. The other thing you'll notice is that there is a ring slot missing. The reason that there is a ring slot missing on all but the leveling gear is covered under Dusk Ring right here. I did not want to make a Dusk Ring because sometimes when I make an item, people try to get that exact one. And because Dusk Ring is so crazy and chaotic, because you're getting 2 to 3 positive stats and 3 negative stats every single time, you just kind of have to find something that works. But you want the increased skill duration on Dusk Ring that I believe is in the right ring socket, I think is what gives it increased skill effect duration, which is why the ring socket on the right is blank. So you just basically want to get a Dusk Ring that works. I do kind of give you, if you're hybrid, it's okay to lose this, you know, if these are the things that you want to look out for. So high percent chaos, percent damage over time, percent damage over time multiplier, any chaos damage over time multiplier, any of those things are very, very good. And then you want to just get something that you can mitigate, essentially. And so you don't have to, but it's going to be tricky. I want to preface that. Playing this kind of a build, Dusk Ring is going to be a very big upgrade, and it is going to be very tricky to gear it correctly. So try out, like you're going to have to use your common sense. Unfortunately, there's no quick way to do it because there's a million different scenarios. Just find something that will work, that has negatives that you can live with, and you'll do substantially more DPS. Kind of as we already talked about, just pick the color combination under whatever end game tier type you're going for, and just click the active boxes. I do have some upgrading stuff, some damage, survivability stuff. Melding of Flesh, Chevron's Wrappings, Vol Caress, and Aegis Aurora are not mandatory. Very, very important. I'm saying high budget for a reason. This is not day one stuff. This is probably not week one stuff for most people. This is going to be a substantial investment. This is something that you want to do, want to get to after a couple of weeks in League, for most people. Now, if you're a crazy fast mapper, you can get there quicker. But for most people, this is going to be more on the... it's going to take you a while, so just kind of be patient. On the mid tier, you'll notice that it has 2 of the 4, and then the high tier has 4 of the 4. Those, we don't know what the prices are going to be on any of this stuff. However, I would expect all 4 items to be fairly expensive, especially at League start. Melding of the Flesh, rolls really matter on it because you want to get -4 max, and you also want to get -70 min, if at all possible. So kind of be careful with Melding of the Flesh. It's probably gonna be very expensive to get one with like perfect rolls, because that's what that is. That's perfect rolls. Now you might be able to get a little bit off perfect. If you have to get off perfect, it is better to get off perfect on the -2 all elemental resistance than the -2 max elemental resistance. Just so we're clear. And you probably, like, depending on the cost difference, it might be worth it to buy a really poorly rolled one and try to divine it. I think divines are going to be very, very expensive. But this is one of those items that might be worth trying to divine, because it's probably going to be a pretty costly item. I could be wrong, it could be dirt cheap, but I do want to preface, I'm expecting basically all of these to be pretty expensive, especially early on. They will get cheaper normally as the league progresses. Now on calcs, I don't have anything checked because it depends on which version you go, what setups you need to do. So I would kind of just stick with the leveling stuff until you are there. But this is kind of complicated, and I do want to preface that. This is going to be, you're going to have to feel out what you prefer. If you prefer ED Contagion, if you prefer ED Soulrend, which is Essence Drain as your main 6-link, then Soulrend is your 4-link, or if you prefer Soulrend is your 6-link and Essence Drain is your 4-link. Unfortunately, Contagion doesn't work with Soulrend the way it does with Essence Drain, so it is not an option to do Soulrend and Contagion on a 4-link. You can use Bane, however, Bane's damage is very, very low, and I would not recommend it whatsoever on that end of things. I hope this was helpful. You may have some questions, and I'm just going to go ahead and get that out there. It's okay if you do. This is kind of complicated, but feel free to ask in the comment section down below, and I will be happy to get back to you as quickly as humanly possible. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, stay sane and Rayclassed.